Good morning, everyone. To the faculty and staff and parents and family, and of course to the 900 proud graduates, I'm really honored to be a small part of this day. This is actually my third class day at HBS, twice as your speaker, 2008 in the pouring rain, and once as a proud parent, class of 2012. I guess I'm trying to make up for the mistake I made of not attending my own graduation in 1978. I had moved to New York City to join my husband immediately after our last class, and we were too in debt to travel back to pick up my diploma. My mother is still irritated with me 35 years later because I had missed my undergraduate ceremony too. I had finished a semester early and settled here in Boston in a job. Looking back, I wonder, why was I always in such a hurry to get to work? I wouldn't make that mistake now that I've learned to embrace mindfulness. That is, how to live fully in the present moment. I've gone to a few lectures lately on mindfulness. Did you know that closing your eyes gives you 90% more capacity in your brain to focus? This could be helpful at work. I knew I had to come up with a new speech today for a number of reasons. First, my HBS speech to women alums from last month is still up on YouTube. By the way, it's quite good. But as of this morning, I am barely ahead of Dean Noria's speech at the W50 in total views, and I would really like to pull ahead of him if you could help me out. I also knew I badly needed to do a new speech after seeing some recent biometric research from the Time Warner Research Lab. I recognized that I'd have two very different audiences today. You graduates, who are what researchers now call digital natives. You all grew up with mobile and connected technology. And your parents and professors, who were digital immigrants. We adapted later in our adult lives. Now, our two groups, we engage in media very differently, both consciously and subconsciously. The research tells me that for you students to really hear me today, I need to get to the point quickly, make my story easy to consume, engage you early with emotion, and provide value and utility, all on your own terms, whatever that means. And I have 20 minutes, which of course is an eternity to you digital natives. The key findings of recent studies, you natives are literally attached to your smartphones. 65% of you carry them from room to room at home. No wonder I'm always missing phone calls from my son. I don't do that because I have landlines in all my rooms. You digital natives all shift your attention from one platform, medium, or channel to another 27 times an hour. 27 times an hour. You are switching between reading, listening, viewing, texting, whatever. That's almost every other minute. No wonder you are likely to say that you don't really give any medium your full attention, and I can't figure out why you aren't all exhausted. Digital immigrants, like me, are intuitively linear. We expect a beginning, a middle, and an end to a story or a speech. You digital natives don't seem to need those elements in that order or any order. So it's a challenge today. So let's start at the beginning. I left here in May 1978, and I started at Time Incorporated. I had two things in my first New York office in corporate finance that you won't find in your offices. First, the absolutely all-essential adding machine. Yes, we did all financial spreadsheets by hand because the IBM personal computer didn't make it to market until August 1981. The second thing I had in my office, which I mistook for an empty credenza for my shoes, to my great disappointment, was a fully stocked bar filled with fifths of every liquor that was advertised in Time and Sports Illustrated. A woman with a drink cart would actually come by every Friday to freshen my bar. Little wonder that the producer of Mad Men had the agency in season 3 move into the Time Life building. Those really were the days of the 2 martini business lunches. It was amazing. Any work got done in the afternoon. And it probably should not have surprised me that Sports Illustrated would schedule AA meetings at 6 o'clock, prior to cocktails, prior to dinner at national sales meetings, because of the serious number of alcoholics in the company. For those of us who had young children at home, getting blasted at work wasn't on the schedule. I think working mothers should take some credit for sobering up corporate America. The good old days were not all that great as I recall them. So I was here on campus last month for the 50th anniversary at HBS and of women at HBS. And at dinner one night, a woman from my section who I have not spoken to in 35 years surprised me with a question that I can't get out of my mind. Why did you stay? Why did you stay with one company for 33 years? Very few of you will do that. First, it honestly didn't feel like 33 years, and it didn't feel like work much of the time. An old Harvard Business Review article, What Brain Science tells us about how to excel, says that play at work is not an oxymoron. People perform best when they're at play. So what you should be searching for, says this article, is flow, the state in which a person is so caught up in what they're doing that they lose self-consciousness. McKinsey published a report a while back that said meaning is the motivation that drives leaders, particularly women. With meaning, any job can become a calling. For 30-plus years, the chance to work with really clever people on extraordinary brands, getting paid to read magazines, debating the issues of our time, making a real difference in the world, that was a joy. I found my calling at Time Inc. I was in the flow, and I wish the same for all of you. At Time Inc., public service and charitable activities really weren't just added value or superficial cosmetic touch-ups. They were factory installed by our founders, Henry Luce and Britton Haddon, from their first conception of Time magazine in the 20s. Henry actually said in a speech in Paris in 1957, quote, "The radical doctrine I hold is that all business is invested with a public interest." The issue was so important to him, he put it in his will. Luce gave time away at a nominal cost to school kids all over the country. That was a practice I continued when I launched SI for Kids in 1989. Luce himself began the practice of donating free ad space to worthy nonprofits, a policy that continues in the media today. So to those of you starting new businesses, what can you learn from Luce and Haddon? How do you build a culture that keeps talent engaged for decades? What really impressed me over the years was not the size of the company contributions, but the breadth of our contributors. Time Inkers every year participated in tutoring, clothing drives, food drives, toy drives. They walked and they ran to raise funds. They donated winter coats and books and their own blood to help those in need. Once when I won a $5,000 award to be directed to a Time Inc. charity, I was completely stumped. Too many choices. So it was just after 9/11. So I emailed Tim McGurk, Times Islamabad bureau chief, and he put me in touch with our stringer in Peshawar, Pakistan, named Rahimullah. Now, over the years, Rahimullah had delivered many scoops, including exclusive interviews with Osama bin Laden and Mullah Omar. But when he wasn't hunting down the two most wanted men, he was back in his hometown near the Khyber Pass trying to organize a surgical eye clinic. So the clinic cost me 250,000 rupees. That was a little over $4,300. I asked Rahimullah to use the change to provide dowries for young women so they could get married. For only a few thousand rupees, that's about $200, my spare change provided a wedding bed, 2 chairs, an electric fan, and new clothes. Now, without a dowry, these young girls would have been sold to older men and removed from their village. So how's that for a return on investment? An eye clinic for 2,500 people and dowries to buy freedom for 3 young women. I worked for a company that stood for the highest standards in journalism. It wasn't just a company that ran great photographs. It was really a company that invented photojournalism and the zip code, by the way, and the quiz show. It wasn't a company that just covered war stories. It was the company that named a global conflict. World War II. It wasn't just a company that offered great writing, it was the company that published Ernest Hemingway's The Old Man and the Sea in a single issue of Life. This is the company that sent photographer Christopher Morris to cover the Gulf War. In 1991, he was captured by Iraqi troops and held prisoner in Baghdad for 6 long days. So imagine my surprise when in 2003, Time's issue on the beginning of Gulf War II opened up with a photo gallery of images from the front, and the first spreads were shot by Christopher Morris. He left behind a week-old baby daughter to go cover the Second War because that's just what he does. I was often overwhelmed by the sheer creativity and courage of our work, by the generosity of our talent. Time writer Michael Grunwald won the prize for preventive journalism for his cover story on the Army Corps of Engineers from New Orleans. Michael, then a young reporter, also with a new baby and a wife who was starting a small business, donated his entire cash $50,000 prize to Katrina victims. It takes some of us longer than Michael to learn that money is great, but the richness of our lives is not measured by it. Who are these people who volunteer to live in a red zone during a war, who chase after a nuclear meltdown or tsunami? And who's going to pay them if there's a total disruption to serious news journalists? It was really a pleasure and an honor to work at Time Inc. for 33 years. I have my fingers crossed that it's not too late for them to survive as an independent public company, because the world, I think, is a better, more honest, safe, stronger place with serious journalists. I stayed 33 years because I was addicted to learning. Big stuff, little stuff, didn't matter to me. From the most practical tips. Did you know that ant trails can be stopped at your home by drawing chalk around your doors and windows? Apparently, ants will not cross chalk. Did you know that you could tenderize meat in Coca-Cola? But I also learned about the biggest issues of our planet. I confess I didn't want to go the night the editor of Time set up a small dinner with Bono. Yes, that Bono. And that would have been a shame, because I don't know when I've ever felt more challenged in discussing poverty, Africa, the environment, world peace, third world debt relief, or AIDS. When Bono talks about what the Pope told him, it sounds authentic, not the least bit pretentious. He gets his authenticity from the sheer fact he's stuck with his activism for so long. The list of problems he once solved is breathtaking. When I asked him to narrow it down, like what's the one thing he wanted me to work on? Justice, worldwide, of course. And get this, he sent me flowers the next day. Manners are the lubricating oil in a society, Peter Drucker used to always say. Bono had the nicest manners of any public person I have ever encountered. He was thoughtful to the most powerful and to the least powerful people in the room. That's why I stayed with one company for 33 years. At the Fortune Most Powerful Women's Conference in Arizona, I think, in 2003, Goldie Hawn was a 3-day participant. Now, this is not a ditzy blonde actress. She really should have gone to HBS. On the last day, Goldie raised her hand, stood before us, and announced that she had finally figured it all out. We leaned in to hear the answer. What was the point of our lives? It came down to just one word, said Goldie: happiness. Jefferson had it right. It's about the pursuit of happiness. So here's my dilemma. I think these are the good old days, right? But if that's true, why isn't everybody happier? The percent of Americans who describe themselves as happy hasn't really budged much since the 50s, yet real income has certainly gone up. Why do so many feel worse about their lives? We did find quite a few articles about the relationship between money and happiness over the years, and it's complicated. You will find the more you make, the more you want. The more you have, the less effective it is at bringing you joy. So how can you avoid all the anxiety traps that are lying in wait to prevent you from being happy, fulfilled, and content at your own 35th reunion? Mine is coming up this year. I believe there are skills that you can develop to increase your chances at happiness. I just discovered Elizabeth Dunn and Michael Norton's book, Happy Money, thanks to the HBS website. They make the case that money does have the ability to buy some happiness, but it's not how much you have that matters, but rather how you spend it. Their book reminded me of an editor's note in Real Simple magazine, quoting a rabbi who officiated at the marriage of the editor's friends. Quote, "If you want to be happy for an hour, take a nap," said the rabbi. "If you want to be happy for a day, go fishing. If you want to be happy for a month, go on a honeymoon. If you want to be happy for a year, inherit a fortune. But if you want to be happy for a lifetime, help other people." Researchers at Cornell, when studying what people regret, found it's the things people fail to do that nag them to the grave. Failure to act outnumbers other regrets 2-1. One of my fondest memories, really, in my entire career was having lunch with John Wooden when I was at Sports Illustrated in the 80s at some hamburger dive in LA. Wooden had coached UCLA to 10 NCAA championships in 12 years, and he said this: "Failure is not fatal, but failure to act might be. Failure to seize the moment." I once saw a survey where 91% of all people said they had not taken enough risks in their careers. Please don't make this mistake. I can pretty much guarantee you that you will be surprised at, let's say, your 25th reunion as to who the real leaders in this class will be. You might not be reading then profiles of the smartest and most confident sitting here today. Rather, I predict it will be the lifelong learners and the best multitaskers and the biggest risk takers among you who will be your class standouts. The most successful will be the ones who have the most self-awareness. Research has shown unequivocally that those leaders who know their strengths and weaknesses outperform those who do not. So know what's important to you and what you stand for. Values are critical to success and happiness. So what lessons have I learned that I can pass on to you today? I'll try to give them to you in little digital sound bites so that you have a slight chance of remembering one or two. I want you to all start by tweeting teamwork. Gone are the days, I believe, when a single heroic leader can carry the day alone. It takes a team to run these complicated businesses in challenging times. Collaboration is absolutely essential. Single players are often voted off the island these days because it's a team game now. I learned that you've got to assign the A team to the hard task of new product development, too. It's simply harder bringing a new product to a new market than it is to steer an existing one. That's why I was able to launch more magazines than Henry Luce, and that's probably the only reason a young woman landed in Henry's office. I want you to tweet trust, so you will remember this word. Trust is a powerful tool to help you lead. When people trust each other, they're able to work through disagreements. They take smarter risks. If they trust their leaders, they work harder, they stay with the company longer, they contribute better ideas, and they dig deeper than anyone has the right to ask. And you better tweet, as Brooke told you, courage. I now believe that conflicts in the workplace are inevitable and often desirable. So is stress, so is competition. I believe the mark of success is where, like a good scout, you've left the place in better shape than you found it, that you've created more jobs than you've destroyed. And yes, by the way, you will have to fire people. And the ones you have to eliminate will not be so fortunate to have defined benefit plans and pensions and safety nets to break the fall. But great leaders don't shy away from the tough decisions, so get used to the anonymous critics, online, offline, and don't let them derail you from what has to be done. In Life magazine, Lady Bird Johnson talked about a needlepoint pillow one of her staff gave her that sat on her sofa in the White House office. It said, "To avoid criticism, say nothing, do nothing, be nothing." Steering an organization through change is hard. It requires a sustained effort that can take a personal toll on leaders. So one of the most important lessons of leading change is to take care of yourself, to maintain your internal compass. I always love the work of Ron Heifetz and Marty Linsky of the Kennedy School. Their Survival Guide for Leaders, I think, is a must-read because they offer practical tips. One is to operate in and above the fray. The ability to maintain perspective, right, in the midst of action is critical. Take time for reflection to find out what's really going on. They call this skill getting off the dance floor and going to the balcony. All successful leaders need to move between the dance floor and the balcony. I believe, as Patty Sellers from Fortune says it best, your career is likely to look more like a jungle gym than a ladder. So fill out your dance card and capture all the skills and experiences you need before getting into that corner office, if that's your goal. Because it's a time management nightmare when you get there, and it really helps if the actual job, at least, isn't a big surprise. So you are now responsible for your life and your career and your happiness all the way to the finish line. No more lectures from mom and dad or the dean or commencement speakers will really make much difference. I've learned in the 35 years since I graduated that making money is really easy. Making a difference is hard. So when I'm 85 and in that rocker on my porch looking back on my file of snapshots, what memories will I cherish most? It, quite frankly, won't be the company planes or the shareholder meetings or client golf tournaments. My husband says I'm the only golfer he knows who's had $100,000 worth of lessons and still doesn't keep score. It won't be the famous people or the awards or the ball gowns I've accumulated. I often think of the void that was created when my generation of women, the baby boomers, had choices. We didn't follow in our mother's footsteps as teachers, nurses, and full-time unpaid community volunteers. And that flight of talent to the business world left a big void in our schools, medical care, and nonprofits. So the next corporate leaders, you digital natives from the class of 2013, you need to fill the void. And there are two things that need your immediate attention. Number one, we simply need to get government working again. I just loathe the concept of the silent majority. I think majority rule has a better ring to it. So please don't waste as much time as we did debating stupid things like intelligent design in an age of science and technology. And if 90% of Americans favor a ban on assault weapons, get one through Congress, for goodness sakes. I just met Gabby Giffords and her husband, Mark Kelly, last month. We must restore majority rule, so don't forget to vote. Second, every problem-solving brainstorming I've ever attended, I don't care if it was the Fortune Global Summits or an Aspen Institute, it always comes down to one starting point: restoring the health of public education worldwide. I'm sorry my generation didn't advance civilization for you further, that we left way too many same old problems on the table for you to tackle again. And it will be hard, and it will be stressful, but you are a competitive bunch. You are some of the most competent and privileged people in the world. Billie Jean King tells the story of the night she played Bobby Riggs. Billie was coached to play a very aggressive game at the net since Margaret Court had been beaten badly by him. But as she was carried out Cleopatra style and faced him on the court, she had this revelation: oh my God, he's as old as my father. I can wear him out. So with the world watching, she changed her entire game plan on live TV. Intuition? No. Scientific fact, he was old. Billie always says this: champions adapt, and pressure is a privilege. I really do hate to tell you that the pressure and stress you may have felt here at HBS, the balancing act of taking on more than seems possible, really never ends. But you are all champions, and pressure is a privilege. I had a request for an old story that I originally heard from former Senator Bill Bradley. He attributes this to the late Irma Bombeck. Irma, said Bill, used to tell the story of the 40-year-old successful career woman who wakes up one day and says, "This is it? This is all there is? I need greater fulfillment. I'm going to quit my job and follow Mother Teresa." So the woman writes to Mother Teresa in Calcutta, volunteering to quit her job, give up her worldly possessions, and move her family to Calcutta to help with Mother Teresa's work among the poor. Months went by. No word. Finally, a letter arrives. One piece of paper inside with just 4 words. Find your own Calcutta. Every year, my mentor, the great Governor Ann Richards from Texas, used to close the Fortune Most Powerful Summit by reminding us to keep our sense of humor, to simplify our lives, to give up on perfection, and to take responsibility for our health. The here and now is all we have, and if you play it right, it's all you'll need. So seize the moment, begin your search for flow, and find your own Calcutta. Congratulations to all of you.